ICCS. Today's seminar is the topic Singapore, Vietnam. Singapore as a place to invest in Vietnam. We have two excellent speakers today. One, unfortunately, cannot be in presence, so we will connect with him on Zoom. We have Phong Tao, Managing Director at Fidinam Vietnam, and Nicola Loiacono, Head of Singapore Desk at Fidinam Singapore. So without further ado, I will already leave the word to Nicola that is connected on Zoom.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, all good.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was supposed to be there with you, but I got COVID, so I am stuck at home. So as Paola mentioned, my name is Nicola Loiacono, and I will present to you together with my colleague, the Managing Director of Fidinam Vietnam, Tao, the business relationship between Singapore and Vietnam. How Singapore can be seen as a base to invest in Vietnam. We will focus mainly on three areas, such as the Singapore being a regional hub for foreign investment, the new regulation of foreign invested company, and the benefits of the double taxation agreement between Singapore and Vietnam. After that, Tao will take over to go into more details about Vietnam regulation. First of all, let's let me introduce our company. Fidinam is a private consulting firm founded in Lugano in 1960. We offer tax, business, real estate, citizenship, residency advice, crypto and digital consulting to companies, entrepreneurs, and individuals. In the past 60 years of our activity, we have acquired extensive knowledge and in-market experience. Besides our presence in Switzerland, Fidinam is present in other European countries, as well as Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, Australia, and Vietnam. As mentioned, our service range from the most traditional ones, such as market entry advisory, corporate secretary, accounting, local tax, and employment services, to the most sophisticated ones, as you can see in the next slide, as international tax advisory, digital consulting, and wealth planning. So, Singapore has a unique position in the global economy and a pivotal role as a business epicenter in the heart of Asia. The city-state has been consistently acknowledged as a global business hub and gateway, thanks to its developed infrastructure, political stability, open business policies, minimal tax and duty costs, skilled workforce, the use of English as the main working language, and also the deep economic linkages among the other states of the region. Many multinationals indeed have chosen to set up their bases here in Singapore. To give you a number, that's about 144,000 small and medium enterprises that we have currently in Singapore. Business owners all over the world consider Singapore as the ideal location to grow their businesses, with many of them using the country as a springboard to tap into other emerging markets in Asia. So it's indeed seen as the key location to access all the other jurisdictions around the country. The GDP growth in Singapore, the GDP growth in the region actually has helped Singapore to develop, to become a retail hub for Asian. The Singapore GDP itself per capita is the highest in the region, and therefore it makes prime location, a prime market for segments such as luxury retail, electronics, jewelry, watches, or premium lifestyle products. Not only, of course, these luxury segments, but also the most traditional one. So a business based in Singapore will have better access to some of the best manufacturing and sourcing jurisdiction, like indeed Vietnam. Vietnam is one of the fastest growing economies in the region. When it comes to manufacturing, Vietnam has focused on more labor-intensive industries such as food processing, agribusiness, clothing, and shoes. On the other side, the government also the intention to push towards more sophisticated sectors like IT and technology, and support this development through some incentives and through the easing of policies and regulation. Vietnam supply chains have significantly evolved from how it was a decade ago. Among the other countries competing for investment, Vietnam has emerged as highly effective alternative for relocation in Southeast Asia due to especially low cost of living, high city development, and vibrant culture. Vietnam pursuit of foreign investment, competitive cost, free trade agreements, and liberal investment environment have made it an ideal location for foreign investors seeking to reduce cost and diversify supply chains. To give you again another example, Singaporean companies have invested in around 20 projects in Da Nang, totally for a value of $8 million US. It makes Singapore the second largest source of foreign investments in the city, and accounting for 22% of the registered capital in Da Nang, foreign registered capital in Da Nang. So Da Nang is actually actively seeking more Singapore investments in areas such as tourism, seaport, airport construction, marine industries, and high-tech manufacturing, automation, digital economy, and healthcare, amongst others. But following the growth of international relationship between Singapore and Vietnam, the business sector has been booming due to the connectivity framework agreement. This agreement has allowed Singapore companies to gain easier access to Vietnam. In 2021, Singapore was indeed one of the Vietnam top investors, with a total amount of investment reaching around 6.7 billion. That shows that Vietnam is indeed one of the Singapore's key investment decisions, and confirm one more time the strong relationship between the two countries. Both countries agree upon a unilateral benefit for cooperation. Singapore has been recognized for their technological advancement and possible potential investment, while Vietnam for its manufacturing abilities and fast-pacing growth of the middle class in the lifestyle and consumer sector, F&B, and retail sector. Singapore exported also $13 billion US to Vietnam in 2019. On the other hand, 5 billion were exported of electrical and electronic equipment from Singapore to Vietnam. Singapore instead importing around 3.65 billion from Vietnam in the same period. These are actually big numbers, and they just confirm what I've been mentioning so far about the strong relationship between the two countries. So confronting the Singapore and some few countries in the next slide, we can see a comparison of the requirement to set up a company and the prevailing rates of the Southeast Asia regions. When comparing the regions, both Singapore and Vietnam require a local director, and they don't need a local shareholder instead. Singapore has the lowest incorporation timeline, typically 2-3 days, compared to Vietnam, which has an average timeline of 3 months. There are also minimal capital requirements, along with a 3% different corporate income tax, which is 17% for Singapore against 20% for Vietnam. The GST for Singapore is 7%, while Vietnam has a VAT which varies between 5 and 10%, depending on the type of good. There are some exceptions also, but I will go into more details later. And finally, the personal income tax progressive range in Singapore is for sure the lowest among its neighbors. So there are many advantages of using Singapore as an entry point to penetrate the markets of Southeast Asia. So in the next slide, you can see. So can we move to the? Yeah. Thank you. So this diagram shows that investing in Singapore or having Singapore joint venture to gain access to the trade union, Asian or major markets produce numerous benefits. Singapore facilitates the disposal of assets, allowing a smooth transaction. It allows to regulate the joint venture agreement in a common law jurisdiction, ensuring that compliance and respect of the law. It also allows to get benefits from the many double tax agreements that Singapore has in place with the other countries. Finally, Singapore ranks second in the world and top in Asia for having the best IP protection, providing security and reassurance. Moving to the next slide, there are 3 types of options to enter Singapore market, such as private limited company, branch office, or representative office. Based on the needs of the company, it's important to decide what type of company, what type of entry to consider. For example, a representative office is not allowed to conduct business activities, but only market research. This might be at the preparation stage before deciding to open a branch office or a private limited. It's a common practice. The following table shows the difference among the individual tax system. Singapore personal income tax rates for resident taxpayers are progressive, but for Vietnam's low personal income tax, it recognizes 10 different categories of income with different deductions, tax rate, and exception applying to each of them. An individual will be considered resident if he is either a Singapore citizen, a permanent resident who resides in Singapore, or foreigner who has worked in Singapore for more than 183 days. While in Vietnam, you need to reside for 133 days or more in each calendar year, or for a period of 12 consecutive months from the date of arrival. Finally, in Singapore, income tax rates for residents are progressive from 0% to 24%, while non-residents have a rate of 15% flat, along with several tax deductions and rebates available for tax residents. In Vietnam, indeed, the income tax rates for residents are progressive as well, but the rates are different. It goes from 5% to 35%. And for non-residents, there is a flat rate of 20%. Okay, mentioning the MOUs signed in 2022. What is an MOU? An MOU is a memorandum of understanding, which is primarily considered as the documents which initiates the negotiations between two countries, two parties. And this document substantiates the scope of such negotiation or any course of action that the party aims to achieve. So MOU for economic and trade cooperation was signed with the aim between Singapore and Vietnam, was signed with the aim of supporting regional and global supply chain connectivity and facilitating business partnership between the SMEs in these two countries. The main crux of drafting the MOU is only to specify the broad scope regarding the talk that parties have reached, outlining the key provisions which have been mutually accepted by the party. However, this is a strong indication that there is a profound intention for cooperation. Probably the most important MOU both countries signed is regarding an implementation work plan on intellectual property for financial year 2022, from 2022 till 2024, stemming from a memorandum signed in 2014. Their plan for cooperation include exchanges in areas such as IP training and commercialization. This is the goal of this plan is to lay the groundwork for the upcoming proposed launch of pilot collaborative search and examination program, a program that will share and exchange the best practices and information between both sides, providing a mutual benefit like IP offices, among other initiatives. Okay, so let me talk about the DTA between Singapore and Vietnam, and then I will leave the floor to Tao. The Vietnam-Singapore Double Tax Treaty is a bilateral agreement concluded by two countries to eliminate double taxation without creating opportunities for non-taxation or tax evasion. Without a DTA, income will be probably double taxed in the two countries. For example, two countries can levy their own taxes on the same income. Instead, under a DTA, the same income will be likely taxed only one of them. The DTA applies to residents of both contracting states, for example, corporate entities and individuals who reside in Vietnam or Singapore or both countries. The treaty covers all taxes on income levied by the tax authorities of the two jurisdictions. Taxes on income includes all taxes imposed on the total income or on elements of the same income, including taxes on gains from selling movable or immovable properties. So to avoid the situation of double taxation, the DTA provides the rule of residence-based taxation, like persons that are taxed or at least bear the main tax burden in the state where they reside. The residency determination rules are established by the national law of taxpayers, while the DTA, however, provides regulation to determine residency in a case where a person is a resident of both contracting states. Indeed, in case a company is a resident of both states, it should be considered as a resident of the state in which its place of effective management is situated. Under the DTA provisions, for example, dividends, royalty, and interest are taxed in the state of recipient's residency, and in states of residence of the company, of the enterprise that is paying the dividend, withholding tax. So we will have two taxation. To lower the tax burden, though, the taxpayers may use a tax credit scheme and enjoy the reduced withholding tax on dividends in the states of residence of the company that is paying the dividend. The main instrument in avoiding double taxation is the foreign tax credit scheme, which is a dollar for dollar reduction toward the taxes paid abroad. So to make things more clear, if you are Singapore resident receiving 1,000 payment of interest from an investment into a Vietnamese company, the Vietnamese company will withhold the 10% on that income, $100, and the Singapore entity will be able to subtract that credit from the Singapore tax bill. So usually gains from selling any property are taxable only in the state where the seller is a resident. However, there are some exceptions, such as gains received by a resident from the sale of immovable property situated in another state, in the other state. Okay, we can move to Vietnam. So I will leave the floor to Ms. Tao, our Managing Director of Fidinam Vietnam.
Thank you, Nicola. I will leave
Thank
the
you,
floor to Tao and we will back with you for the Q&A. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicolas, for the very nice presentation. And I hope to see you back to the office very soon. Okay, so good morning. I think I don't need this because okay, good morning to everybody. Thank you for attending our seminar today. My name is Phương Thao. I'm a lawyer coming from Vietnam. So today I'm very delighted to be here together with my colleague to tell you about the story about investing in Vietnam through the Singaporean-based unit. So before going to the detail of my presentation, let me give you some further information about the foreign investment situation in Vietnam. So as you might heard from various channels, that Vietnam now has been becoming more and more attractive for foreign investors, especially after COVID. Many foreign investors now considering Vietnam as the China +1. So according to the evaluation of FDI performance in the first 9 months of this year from the Ministry of Investment and Planning, the foreign investment in Vietnam has been increasingly. That shows that enterprises in Vietnam are constantly recovering, maintaining, and expanding their production and business in Vietnam. In particular, now Vietnam is considered as one of the most safest destinations and offer the most favorable conditions for the world high-tech giants to manufacture their product and related parts in my country. There are many production projects of the high-tech giants already established and operating in Vietnam, such as from Samsung, Nokia, Gotek, Intel, and so on, and also other projects of the authorized corporation who are manufacturing and assembling components for Apple, Lego, Microsoft has been announced their incorporation in Vietnam. So the base, the president of the big name has made Vietnam as a new base to manufacture electronics and mobile phone components. The increase in foreign investment in Vietnam showed that foreign investors continue to believe in the economies and investment environment in Vietnam. And it has created a lot of opportunity to Vietnam, for Vietnam to participate more deeply in the global supply chains, as well as to make Vietnam have an important link in the global trade movement. When it comes to the nationality of investor, there are 97 countries and territory has invested in Vietnam. And among which Singapore, as my colleagues have shared, that Singapore remained top rank as the Vietnam largest foreign investor for 2 consecutive years, 2020 and 2021. And it is expected that, it is projected that Singapore will remain this position in this year as well, because according to the reports from the ministry, within the 9 months of this year, Singapore remained the leading source of investment in Vietnam, with the total investment capital as around 5 billion USD, marking it for 25.3% of total FDI registered in the country. So why Singapore? I believe that my colleague already gave you the answer for this question. And my duty today is to give you the introduction about the legal framework to set up a company in Vietnam, as well as taxation and investment incentive available for companies in Vietnam. So let's turn on our attention to the first part of my presentation, which is about company incorporation. So before setting up a legal entity in Vietnam, you might consider which legal entity will be the best for you. So the answer is really depends on the business plans of the investor from time to time. So according to the law of owner commerce of Vietnam, we do have companies, rep office, or branches. So let's talk about the simplest organization, rep office. Similar to the neighbor jurisdictions such as Hong Kong and Singapore, rep office in Vietnam are not allowed to involve in profit generating activity. Its operation is limited to market research and promotional activity to promote the business of company in the Vietnamese market. And before setting up a rep office in Vietnam, foreign company has to operate for at least 1 year after the incorporation days in their country. Next is branches. Branch is not a common choice for foreign investor in Vietnam due to its limited business sector and complicated entry procedure. The compliance procedure is equal to subsidiary company, but the operation functions are less convenient. As you can see, foreign investor and foreign company are allowed to set up branch in Vietnam to perform a system of services, use the computer, service. The business that other than that lead. Foreign company cannot set up branch to do that kind of business in Vietnam. And also, before setting up a branch in Vietnam, the foreign company need to put their offshore business into operation for at least 5 years. So it means that a newly set up foreign company cannot set up a rep office or branch in Vietnam. They need to do the country for a certain period of time. Lastly, we have company. So in Vietnam, we have private enterprise, partnership, limited liability company, or so-called LLC company. Most of foreign invested company in Vietnam are established as LLC and joint stock company. And the reason making these two companies is by both domestic and international investor is a limited liability. Accordingly, shareholder of LLC and joint stock company are responsible for tax and financial obligation to the extent of the capital that they inject in the company. So what are the difference between limited liability company and joint stock company? First of all is regarding the number of shareholders. There is a limitation in the maximum number of LLC. For LLC, we have a single member LLC, which is established by an individual or a company. Then we have a multi-member LLC, which is established by between 2 and 50 shareholders. It means that a multi-member LLC will have a maximum 50 members. However, for joint stock company, a joint stock company has always maintained at least 3 shareholders. There will be no limitation on the maximum of number of the shareholder of joint stock company. In addition, for the management structure of LLC is quite simple. So it allows the shareholder, the investor can easily manage company. There is a limitation regarding the transfer of share of the member of a liability company. So in the multi-member LLC, if a shareholder want to sell its share to another person, first of all, they need to offer the sale of share to another existing shareholder of the company. And the existing shareholder of the company will have a 30 days to consider and decide whether or not purchase the shareholder of that investor. So if after 30 days, no decision is made, the shareholder who want to sell can sell to another person who is not existing shareholder of the company. However, for the joint stock company, except for special case applied for the founding shareholder within the first 3 years, shareholder of joint stock company are freely to transfer its share to any person without the procedure required as the shareholder of limited liability company. And that's why joint stock company is an ideal for minimum and large size enterprise, because it allows the company to add a new shareholder and increase the capital without any complicated procedure. So when talking about foreign invested company, we have 100 foreign owned company and joint venture company, which is established by a foreign investor and local investor. So far in Vietnam, the government just require the participation of foreign investor in a few industry. Most of industry now are open for 100% foreign owned. So I'm giving you some example about the business that still need the participation of local investors. Here we have advertising service, content clearance service, travel agency, and tour operator service. For this type of service, the threshold of foreign capital can be up to 99% or even 99.9%. However, for other services like road, freight, transportation, the maximum is 51. So passenger transportation, internal waterway transportation, the maximum of the foreign capital is 49%. The threshold of foreign capitals are regulated in the applicable international agreement between Vietnam and the country of the investor, as well as in the local regulation. So how to set up the company in Vietnam? So to set up a foreign invested company in Vietnam, the foreign investor will go through 2 steps. Step 1 is apply for an investment registration certificate, briefly called IRC. And this certificate will contain the information of investor, or target business, location of the company, and investment incentive, if any. Following the IRC, the foreign investor need to apply for an enterprise registration certificate, or so-called company license or business certificate, and so on. And the company in Vietnam will be officially established from the days of ERC. That is for the normal case, but in special case, when foreign investor involved in conditional business such as set up a nuclear power factory, or they do the project that require the relocation of people or the change in the land use purpose, they need to go through the approval before going to IRC and ERC application. However, for an investor who set up minimum and small size innovative startup, they are not required to apply to obtain the IRC, but they can go straight with the application for ERC and have the company set up within a short time. When setting up a company in Vietnam, there are some important notes that foreign investors need to pay attention to. And today I would like to introduce you two important notes. The first one is related to capital contribution. After the company is set up, both local and foreign investor will have 90 days to complete the capital contribution. The asset to be contributed as the capital can be VND, convertible foreign currency, the value of land use right, value of IP right, value of technology secrets, and other assets that can be accessed in VND. In case there are some shareholder failed to contribute the capital as committed, so the company will have a 30 days. From the last day, the chartered capital were due to be contributed in full to access the capital in the license, to update the license according to the capital amount. If the company failed to do it within the regulatory limit, there will be a humble administrative penalty to be imposed. And the second important note is related to legal representative. As you may heard that in Vietnam, a company can have one or more than one legal representative who will be on behalf of the company to work with the authority to sign agreement document to work with any other third party. In case the company have more than one legal representative, then their rights and obligations must be specified in the company charter. In the absence of the article specifying rights and obligation of each legal representative, owner of legal representative will have the same authority before the state agency, before any third party, and also all of them have to take the choice responsibility for any damage caused to the company according to the regulation. Regarding the title of legal representative, in a limited liability company, if there's only one legal representative, so that legal representative must hold the position of either director, general director, or the chairman of the member council. In a joint stock company, if there's only one legal representative, so that legal rep would hold the position of the chairman of the or director or general director. So actually, I just went through on the slide talking about the incorporation procedure in Vietnam as well as the important notes. And now I would like to introduce you about the taxation and investment incentive in Vietnam. About taxation, most of business in Vietnam are subject to business license fee, corporate income tax, and value-added tax. These tax is at national level. It means that there will be no provincial level. So business license, this fee will be payable from the second year of operation. The payable amount will be depending on the capital of the company. The information there. If the company capital is from $450,000 or and more, then on the annual basis, the company has to pay around $130 at the business license fee. If the company capital less than $450,000, then there will be very humble amount as the business license fee at around $7 or $90 will be payable from the second year. For the first year, there will be no business license fee. Secondly is the corporate income tax. Corporate income tax is the direct tax imposed directly on the profits that the company generate in the tax year, and the standard tax rate is 20%. So in an effort to support business overcoming the difficulty caused by COVID for the tax year 2020 and 2021, the government of Vietnam adopted 30% reduction in CIT payable to enterprise who has revenue in that year less than 200 billion VND, which is equal to around 1,800,000 US dollar, a reduction of 30% in CIT. Value-added tax depends on the kind of good and service. We have a different value-added tax, 0%, 5%, or 10%. Exported goods and service are subject to 0% VAT. And also to support the business to recover after COVID. Recently in Vietnam, the goods are subject to 10% VAT. Now we have a new VAT, which is 8% for the period from February to December of 2022. And whether or not this supporting policy will have valid in the next year, we need to see. Besides, in Vietnam, we have special consumption tax will be imposed on certain goods are considered non-essential or luxurious. And we have environment protection tax will be applied to the imports or manufacturers of products that are considered to have the negative impact on environment. As Nicola has already shared with you in his presentation, that attracting foreign investment has always the key part of Vietnam. Vietnam has already strong business environment, but the government now is working harder and harder to be even more appealing to investors. And that's why the government now is constantly improving and introducing more and more supporting policy to foreign investors. And investment incentive play a very important part in attracting foreign investors coming to Vietnam. So in Vietnam, investment incentive include corporate income tax incentive, import tax exemption on goods imported to create asset of the company, exemption from or reduction of land rent, land tax, and accelerated depreciation, increasing the deductible expense when calculating the taxable income. When it comes to corporate income tax incentive, we have three preferential CIT rates, 10%, 15%, and 17% available where certain criteria are met. The two common preferential CIT rates are 10% and 17% are available for a period of 15 years and 10 years respectively. Besides, the company in Vietnam may also eligible to tax holiday and reduction. The tax holiday take the form of tax exemption for a certain period, followed by another period where the tax is paid at 50% of the applicable tax rate. And you can see like tax exemption for 4 years and 50% reduction of payable tax amount for 9 subsequent years. So yeah, so who will be entitled to the investment incentive? So as you can see, the investment incentive will be given to encourage industry, to encourage a company in encourage area or investment project. Some investment project, I mean the large scale investment projects. As you can see the list. So after the event, I'm happy to share with you this slide so you will have full information about the object entitled to investment incentive. So what are encouraged business? So in Vietnam, encouraged business which are given investment incentive are high-tech activity, production of new material, new energies or renewable energies, education, agriculture, or collection, processing, reprocessing, or reuse of the fuel waste, the full list are provided in Article 15 of the Law on Investment 2020. But incorporate areas are areas having typical social economic conditions or industrial zone, economic zone, high-tech zone. So we have a list attached to the law on on the corporate income tax. So if you need the list of the incorrect area, we are happy to share the list with you. So in order to give you a clear picture about the foreign investment incentive, here I have an example. For example, if you set up a company to produce software in Vietnam, and assuming that the company have profits from the first year of operation, and for the first 15 years, the tax rate will be 10%. And also, for the first 4 years, there will be a CIT exemption that the company will not pay tax, pay CIT before the 4 years. And for the next 9 years, the CIT rate is 5%. For the 14 and 15 years, the CIT will be 10%. And after that, the CIT will be at the standard rate, 20%. So this example actually end my presentation today. Thank you for listening. I hope that you will find the information given today useful. I and my colleague Nicola now remain at your disposal for any clarification or any further information that you might need. So thank you.